What's up, everybody? Hopefully you guys are doing great as always. My name is Itai, and today I'll be showing you the Caro Kann opening. I'll start by just explaining the main lines and some of the advantages and disadvantages with the opening, and then I'll show you a real game example to show you, if played right, how powerful the Caro Kann can actually be. Around 75% of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you're watching this right now and you are not subscribed, make sure you go down there, make a YouTube account for free, and subscribe. More importantly though, make sure you comment down any video ideas you have, such as openings like these ones, or tip videos, or trap videos, whatever videos you want to see, make sure you comment them down below. So it's an opening you play as black against e4, and here you just play c6. Now, the off the bat idea with c6 is to then play d5 and question this pawn in the center. A lot of your other openings, like the Sicilian or just the very common d5 opening, allow white to fully take control of the light squares in the center. But a move like c6 threatens to try to regain that control, and it doesn't let white immediately take control of half of the center. Okay, so c6 in that idea is very good. Now, usually you'll end up seeing a move like d4. Obviously, with other openings like the Sicilian or d5, you stop white from playing d4 and gaining full control of the center. And most times, gaining full control of the center in the start, especially with the first two moves, seems very damaging. But not really here, because by playing c6, you fully prepare yourself to play then d5. And by playing d5, now you're threatening this pawn. And if white tries to trade, that's a great trade for you. You give out your c-file pawn for a central pawn. And obviously central pawns are worth considerably more. So if a trade occurs, that's very pleasant for you. Usually white instead will develop their knight here. And be prepared to recapture if you decide to capture, which is exactly what you're going to do. You're going to capture this pawn here. White is going to recapture. And now I need to explain something. A lot of players make the mistake of playing a move like e6. The idea with e6 is obviously, to try to just push out more of your pawns, unleash this dark square bishop. And e6 is a great move, in this aspect. Just control some of the center. And e6 is a move that you're eventually going to play. But please do not make the mistake of playing e6 before you develop your bishop. Because if you play e6, this bishop is very sad. It won't be able to get out of this file, and as opposed to other openings, you can't easily fianchetto it, because if you fianchetto this bishop, it still has this pawn on c6 that will be blocking it. So you're going to be playing the bishop over here, and it's kind of coming with tempo. Not really, because white can regain tempo here and force you to move the bishop back. Or even, I guess, you could protect it here. But white is going to regain the tempo. But the main idea with bishop over here to f5 isn't really to try to grab the knight, but it's to develop the bishop before you play e6. So once the knight moves back, let's say there, then you can play e6, and now it's very pleasant. I like to explain kind of the ideas of how you're going to develop your pieces, because it isn't as clear here. Some of the more clear ideas, so obviously you're going to play c6, you're going to develop your bishop, you're going to play e6, you're going to unleash your bishop here once e6 is obviously played, and then you can also move out your knight here. But this knight here usually has some trouble getting in, because c6 is taken, and as you all know, f6 and c6 are the most common spots for your knights. That being said, you can still very easily get it in the game with a move like d7. Okay, sometimes maybe you'll even be able to play a6 and maybe try to move it over here, but generally speaking, just d7 is quite solid, and with the help of the other moves and castling, a d7 is very, very nice. Okay, it even sometimes prepares a move like c5 or even a move like e5. And so you can see that it isn't very hard to develop your pieces here, and all the moves that I've highlighted, and I'll highlight again now, all these moves here, they're very intuitive. They're not something you have to memorize, because, like I said, they're very, it's something that you're gonna see initially, and if you just go with your guts, you should find yourself in a position like this. Obviously, once you develop these pieces, you can castle. And generally speaking, you land yourself at a pretty pleasantly developed position. Now let's move on to a game example where the Caro Kann was actually used to show you how powerful it can be. Alright, so like I said, this is obviously a game where the Caro Kann was played, and you can see it's exactly like I mentioned. This is the classical variation, but it's just probably the best one. Obviously, after the knight is pushed, then you take the pawn, and after you trade, you can see that the bishop was pushed out rather than playing e6, right? Because otherwise, once again, the bishop would just be sad. Here the knight chose to go here, which is a little weird. And in this case, I guess maybe e6 would not be the best move. So as black, the player decided to play b6, which I don't think is horrible. But I have to admit that the knight here is a little strange. Usually, you'll see the knight go to here. But I mean, it's not a horrible move, I guess, right? Regardless, the knight has to be kicked back again, and then now you start the normal development. Now that you've already developed two pawns, you don't want to develop a third one immediately, especially when it's not like you're ever gonna miss the chance to play e6. So you can develop your other pieces for now. But now you decide obviously to play e6 because you want to unleash the bishop. Okay, but the order. As long as first you get the bishop before e6 does not matter. You can first develop the knight, then play e6. It's not that strict. Anyways, the game continues obviously, and instead of moving the bishop here, black just decided to move the bishop here. When I was explaining where you want to move everything, I just pointed here because I was explaining you want to move it somewhere on this diagonal. But moving it actually to d6 is one of the better moves. Because after this move it's just a check, but you're just gonna be faced with the bishop probably blocking it, right? So it's not gonna be a huge deal. Maybe even the pawn, right? And you can see, try to focus not as what white is doing, but what black is doing. You can see that the developments have been very smooth. The bishop got out, the other bishop got out because of the e6 move, the knight has gone out, and already you've managed to castle even before white, which is a little rare, as white gets to start first. And once again, the knight, rather than c6 as it's blocked, has to go to d7, which isn't horrible, and you can see that this knight actually ends up being quite good for black. And you can see that by castling first, you manage to get your rooks involved faster than your opponent. And now some just developing moves happen. The knight actually ends up finding itself in a pretty nice position on outpost eventually. And you can see that all your pieces as black just work very nice, right? Obviously, this knight is now on an outpost in a pretty good position, keeping a lot of places guarded and in check. And overall, this is quite nice. The knight is forced to move because of the check that happened, but you can see how pleasant this position is, for black. Now here I do want to mention something. Obviously, this move takes away the protector of this bishop, but because it comes with tempo and the queen has to respond, white does not get a chance to win the bishop. Okay, so as long as when you're playing moves that take away a defender, as long as you're forcing your opponent to do something, this could have also been check, but as long as you're forcing your opponent to do something, it doesn't end up being that bad. Okay, and some trades happen, and overall, if we just pause right now, you can see how much control black has, not only in the center, which it has a lot of control in the center as well, but just all over the board. It's a very nice position for black. In my opinion, much better than white right now. So I would definitely prefer to be black in this position. And this isn't supposed to be a huge game analysis, which is why I'm kind of skimming through the moves. But the main idea here was just to show you that the Caro Kann can be very powerful, and can very easily stand out or stand up to e4. And you can see that you can trade. You can trade as black here because of the better position you have. As long as you have an advantage, you want to trade pieces. So you can see that black has done a wonderful job of basically trading down the whole board. And now it's a very simplified position, a very simplified endgame, in fact, where black just has the advantage of a pawn. You can see that one of the pawns is traded. And in this position right here, white ended up resigning, I believe. The reason that white resigns is because, you'll just be able to play a move like h4, and obviously the pawn cannot take because of this pin. So white, I guess, would have to play a move like this, which obviously now unprotects this pawn, so you can now fork the pawn and the king, win the pawn. You're losing this other pawn, sure, but you've traded a good pawn because now you have two connected pawns. And I mean, black can easily just stop this pawn from ever being pushed forward, and this will be very pleasant for black. So overall, the Caro Kann is a wonderful opening that I encourage you to try against e4. Make sure you subscribe if you're new. Leave down below any suggestions you have. I'll see you next time.